was really sort of misunderstood, and many people, family members, said, oh, he's awful, he needs to be in prison. And I ended up going to a pupil referral unit. If I hadn't have turned my life around at 13 and continued the path I was going, then I could have quite easily seen myself like some of the young people we work with that come into the care system really late on, 15, 16, not because the parents don't want them, but because they find it really hard to cope with that young person, with the level of strength and aggression. When I look at the people that worked with me when I was a young person, and I think of all the challenges that I give them, but they stood by me and they really helped me, I feel like it's my time now to help the next young people coming up who are misunderstood, who are these naughty people, and try and give them a chance at life like a set amount of people give me, because if they hadn't give me the chance and stood by me, then we wouldn't be here doing this today, because I'd probably be in prison.
You can imagine it's probably one of the most traumatic experiences that a child or a young person can face, being pulled away from the family, and being pulled away from the family for abusive relationships, sexual abuse, physical abuse, neglect.
I would say that what they share is adversity. That they're living with present issues and past issues that affect the present.
So for a young person, when they come into care, there's the rejection and there's the trauma, deep-rooted trauma of all that they've experienced. On an emotional level, it's absolutely heartbreaking, but also all them relationships that should be key to them are fractured.
We have probably a quarter of our children have some sort of social care involvement, and probably about 12 at the moment that are living in either foster placements or children's homes. They don't trust, they're very, very distrusting, because they've gone through their entire lives of people being nice to them. So they'll meet them for the first time, social worker, foster carer, whoever, and they will be engaging, and they'll do nice things with them, and they'll buy them nice presents, and they'll spend a bit of time with them, and then they're gone again.
The behaviour is really very much trauma-led. So you'll see, aggressive behaviours, you'll see challenging behaviours all over the place really, in terms of emotional health, self-esteem, how they think about themselves and their place in the world.
I think if you've had a difficult time in childhood and you haven't had secure attachment, and then you're in a system, because that's what it is, it's a care system, it's not a parent substitute, then you are going to experience issues with self-esteem.
One of the key things is having adults that are interested, that care, that genuinely care, that it's not just part of the job, but they genuinely care and they're available. When they come into care, that the care they receive is unconditional. There's people interested in them, there's people interested in what they're doing, where they are, how they're doing at school, and there's consistent adults around them that can bounce off and they can rely on.
I would say that every young person I'm working with at the moment, obviously data-wise, that's quite a small group of individuals in the UK. Their experience of the care system runs along the lines of no love, no support. These are the things that they will say: no love, no support, the opposite of empowerment.
If we're going to get services right and support right for them, then we have to listen to what they want and what they need, rather than working at young people, working with them and making them an active participant rather than a passive recipient.
Procedures that are followed within the care system are devised by an agency other than the young person. So essentially they're being done too. I think to empower someone to make a difference, you need to give them the tools fundamentally, and you need to view them as the expert in their own lives. It needs to be user-led.
We're a lot better at it than some countries, as you can imagine. But when the UN do these like massive worldwide surveys about how countries treat the children, I think the highest the UK has been is 16th in the world. So we've still quite a bit of work to do.
I think when you look at the care and the support needs for young people, it needs to be very bespoke. And I think that's where, when you look at providers across the UK, there's some really good providers out there. And when you look at why they're good and why they're still doing what they're doing it because they're very bespoke and they create things specific to that young person's need. The providers that create a one-size-fits-all method works for some young people, but for other young people, it doesn't. We're working with 10 young people directly, but then if you look at a wider scope, so you look at their friends, you look at the family, you look at the outreach programs we're working with, those figures quite quickly are approaching sort of the 20 mark at the moment. We give them a supportive environment, we give them a safe environment, we give them access to funds, learning, work experience, that sort of thing. One thing that we can never give them or replace is maternal love, really. I think when I look at majority of the young people that we work with, what I see is that the difference between us is that my grandma and my granddad was very resilient in battling back and helping me, really. And some of these young people, for one reason or another, haven't had that level of support, hence why they're now in the care system. When I was born, my mum at the time, and she'll say the same, was going through a period of time where she wasn't maybe quite ready for kids. And she realised that the best place for me to stand a good chance in life was with my grandparents. And I wouldn't change any of it, because now I've got my grandma, who I try not to annoy because she's the parent, and I try not to tell her anything, and I don't want to get in trouble off her. And then I've got my mum, who's almost like my best friend, and I can go to her and ask for advice, and she gives me that best friend approach of things. It was hard because quite a lot of things happened. So when I look back, my auntie, she'd gone to Australia, she died in a car crash when I was 5 or 6. So that had a real sort of effect on me. I hated school. I shouldn't have been in mainstream school, but I shouldn't have been in a pupil referral unit, and there's no middle ground. And it's a real strange environment because you get the high level of support you need, but it's also carnage. Because what you do is you get all these young people with all these really high level needs, and you put them all together. At times it can be really, really rough. I remember at times refusing to go to school because I was really scared. There were some young people there that were a danger to myself, to society. There was a stage in my life where I was admitted to West End. And at the time, West End was a NHS provision, and it was looking at more sort of trauma effects, looking at mental health, looking at behaviour needs. And during that time, there was discussions for me to go into residential there for a period of time. But I think my gran sort of kicked up a bit of a stink and said, I don't want that happening. I started doing some work with RAP at the time, and Freedom Road. And it was through that work and through, building up relationships with other young people, staff really understanding me within those youth groups and my grandparents, that then sort of changed my life.
My partner was a teacher, and she worked at a school, and Kane was at that school, and she used to come home to me and tell me that this lad used to come into the office and hide under the table.
Walked into Oakfield School as a supply teacher, and and Kane was the first person that I'd come in. I'd just come back from Australia. I pick up accents quite quickly, so I had a bit of an Aussie twang, as they would say. And in not so many words, he told me that he wasn't being taught by somebody that was Aussie. 1 minute he would be absolutely fine, and the next minute he would decide that he wasn't going to be, and that could be bad language, that could be hitting out. So yeah, we used to have to restrain him.
You know, it went on to the fantastic opportunity that we had to go to Australia for the Create Foundation conference, and I was Kane's mentor. So I was given the job as Kane's mentor, and I always remember a meeting that we had, myself and Ian Bolton, went to meet with his head teacher at one of the pupil referral units, and this guy was very officious and everything, and he said, oh, you're going to Australia then? So he said, yeah. He said, do you realise how long that flight is? And we said, yeah, it's a long flight. And he said, and who are you then, sir? I said, well, I'm Craig, you know, I'm going to be Kane's mentor. And he said, good luck with him sitting on the flight, because he won't sit in my class for 5 minutes.
All the way up to 13, I was causing chaos at school, I was causing chaos at home. I went to Australia, and overnight I changed. It was like there was fairy dust sprinkled onto me. It was a level of closure because my auntie had died over in Australia. But it was also, I saw some amazing things over there, and I thought to myself, I want to come back here. And I remember one night I sat outside the hotel, and I just thought to myself, life is so much bigger than Hull. The world is so much bigger than Hull. And I want to see all of it. But to see it all, I need to change my life around.
When he came back, he had conversation, like adult grown-up conversation like that would be like, I'm going to change. I want to better myself. And it'd be like, absolutely, and you can. And it didn't all change at that point. We would still have blips, but that's to be expected.
All the young people that came on that trip would probably talk about it in that way, you know, that they had the opportunity to experience something that was completely different to what they've experienced so far, and it opened their horizons, it opened their minds to possibilities. In terms of like the way people's minds work, just generally, if you feed more good stuff in, you're likely to get more good stuff out. And a lot of young people who's been in care, it's all been bad stuff and negative stuff, so you're gonna potentially see negative outcomes. You're gonna be able to see people narrowing their experiences and narrowing what they think they can do and what they can't do. But if you feed more opportunities in and more good stuff, you can trigger and think, do you know what? I want a bit of this, I can do this, I can go further with this.
So it's about understanding that when we grow up, we all have different things we want to do that make us happy, make us feel safe, make us process our days, and that's what it's about. And the more we give them those, then more people feel confident about doing things.
The majority of the young people that we have worked with have been exploited in some kind of way by these sort of criminal enterprises, because they target these young people because they know that they don't have loving, settled family home lives that will kick off a fuss, you know, with the police when they've gone missing or when things are brewing in the background. So what we try to do with these young people, we're going to give them little snapshots of other things that they can do. So for instance, we let them do powerboating courses, they do hiking, climbing, we look at work, we look at enterprising skills. So we try to open their eyes to make them realise, look, there is other ways of making money, there is more out there in life that you can get if you really put your mind to it, and don't go down that criminal route, because in doing that, it's only going to end up in one or two ways.
Far too many young people, and it's well documented, far too many young people who've been in care are represented in prisons, are represented in unemployment stats, are represented in you know, falling out of school and not going on for further education. You know, far too many, and that's been a growing concern for a number of years.
We have this idea within society that's perpetuated by government of individualised responsibility. Each individual can do well as long as they really try. And then that kind of perpetuates this idea that if we have achieved something, it was because we'd worked really hard. There's no acknowledgement of privilege.
It's about having supportive adults around you, not to judge, to work with you through thick and thin and be consistent and create opportunities.
Resilience can come in two forms, grit and bounce back. In my opinion, both aren't possible or are mutually exclusive to being psychologically healthy.
I don't think you can teach resilience. I think you can certainly influence it and try and nurture it. Because I think a lot of young people are extremely resilient and strong. And I think what you have to do is try and build on that and allow them to have a childhood.
When you face adversity, you don't bounce back. So do care leavers need to be more resilient? No. They're not broke, the system is.
If I could give the young people one gift, I suppose it would be the gift of the ongoing support past 18. Because it very much is, 1 minute that young person's 17 and has everything, and the next minute they're 18 and it's gone. These young people are the future. Our young people around us are the future. And I think society forgets about these young people. I constantly try and think of new ways and methods that we can try and work with these young people past 18, because it is really scary to think that some of these young people, when they get to 18, the support network's gone.